Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is part 2 of the recorded lecture for the topic Vicarious Liability. In the part 1, we have discussed the first element in order to establish Vicarious Liability. So the first element was to prove the existence of employer-employee relationship, and that is done by way of establishing or proving contract of service. Okay, and we have 3 tests that we have covered together. And then before we proceed to the second element, there's also a sub issue here about lending a worker. Okay, what if the employer lends his worker, okay, to another employer? Meaning here there could be 2 employers, so who should be made vicariously liable, okay, for the tort committed by the employee? For example here, if B, an employer of A, is lent to C and B subsequently commits a tort, the employer is B. So general principle is that A, the main employer, will be vicariously liable unless A here has divested himself of all control. It depends on who has still the main or primary control over the work done by B, the worker or the employee here. We have the leading case of Mercy Docks and Harbour Board and Coggins and Griffith, Liverpool Limited, 1946. What happened here? A employed B as an employee, a driver of a mobile crane. Okay, that's the picture I put there, mobile crane, and hired out the crane together with B to C. So meaning that here A lent out B together with the crane to another employer, which is C. And then there exists a contract between them. The contract between A and C, the new employer, provided that B should work for C, but would be paid, the payment of wages would still be paid by A. And A alone had the power to dismiss B. So A retains the power of dismissal when with regards to B's employment or B service here. And what happened was that B negligently injured X, a victim, in the course of loading a ship. Remember, he was a mobile crane driver. So at that time, C, the new employer, the second employer, had direct control and direction of the work being done by B and his crane. But again, C had no power to direct how B should work and manipulate its control because B has experience and skill of driving this mobile crane. So House of Lord held that. So who should be vicariously liable here? Is it A or is it C? So House of Lord held that A was still the general permanent employer of B and was therefore vicariously liable to X and not C here. Because why? There were retention of certain important authorities, okay, power towards B. So A had the power. Okay, we move to the second requirement. Okay, meaning that we are done with the first requirement, which is relationship of employer-employee. And another important requirement here is that vicarious liable will only be established, okay, if the tortious act of the employee is done actually during the course of employment. I mean that here we must establish this particular element. So having said so, it means that employer will be liable when the wrongful act is expressly or impliedly allowed by the employer. So employer was doing something which is allowed, the act, whatever work that he was doing. So it is allowed by the employer. Or when the employee does something that is authorized in a wrongful or unauthorized manner. The main act is allowed to be done, but the way it is to be done, maybe it's not really allowed, it's not really authorized in that way. So we have Salmon test for that. And then another situation is that employer will be liable when the employee does something that is closely connected with what he is employed to do. So he's supposed to do this work, and then certain other thing which is and then the employee did some other things which is closely connected to his his main duty. So this is under close connection test. So let's move forward. Okay, so whenever we discuss about this requirement in the course of employment, so this is some of the issues, in which we want to know, is it still considered or regarded as in the course of employment? For example, the first one, carelessness of the employee. What if the employee is careless in doing the job, in discharging his duty? Can still we hold the employer to be vicarious liable or not? Okay, what if there was a mistake on the part of the employee in doing the work? Okay, will still the rule of vicarious liability be applicable? And what if, okay, there exists express prohibition by the employer? So meaning that your employer has given the warning, okay, you don't do this or you don't do that. Still employee does the act, okay? So can we hold the employer liable in that particular situation, workers liable? And the fourth one, criminal acts by the employee, okay? For example, employee was acting on a frolic of his own, okay? We are going to discuss later, okay? All these four situations, four scenarios, okay, which is related to in the course of employment. Okay, the first one, carelessness of the employee. What's the rule governing whenever it involves carelessness of the employee? So if the worker, the employee, is authorized to do the work by the employer, and the employer will be vicarious liable if the employee was careless in doing the work. And by doing the careless work, okay, he caused damage to the plaintiff. So in that particular situation, the act of carelessness here, it doesn't absolve, okay, the employer from liability. We have the case here, landmark case, a common law case, Century Insurance Company Limited and Northern Ireland Road Transport Board here, 1942. Plaintiff was the owner of a petrol station, so he had a petrol station, and defendant's worker went there to transfer petrol. So it's something common, okay, to see petrol, we call it tank, is it? Tanker, okay, came to transfer petrol, okay. All right, and then the worker, okay, defendant's worker, he lit a cigarette and he threw the burning match on the floor. And after he did that, okay, just instantaneously, okay, this caused, shortly after, this caused an explosion, boom, okay, wherein the plaintiff property, the whole petrol station was destroyed. All right, so what's the rule governing this negligence act here, negligent act? Employer is liable if the thought done, okay, by the employee as it was during the course of his employment, okay, will be liable if the work is still in the course of employment, okay. And then the employee here, the worker, he was authorized, okay, to do the work. He was doing the transfer of petrol, right? But he did it negligently by lighting a cigarette and then by throwing the burning match, okay, in an unauthorized manner. So was there vicarious liability? Yes, there was. He was careless, okay. So carelessness, employer has to bear the cost. Has to whatever effect here, the employer is made liable together with the employee. We have our local case. All right. Zakaria bin Chekso and Chui Kamlong, 1980, and another 1986 here. An accident took place while the driver is the employee, okay, who was on his way to unload belongings carried while on duty. So he was on duty, and actually he wasn't not on his way home for lunch. So he wasn't actually on the way to have some lunch. Okay, he was actually on the way, okay, to unload certain belonging. Doing the work lah, basically here, all right? So he was performing his duties as instructed by the employer. And the court said, well, even if he was driving home for lunch, okay, employer would still be liable on the particular facts of the case, because whatever work here, it is still within the course of employment. He was still doing the work. Although the act is one that is certainly not required by the employee to do, okay, it is still fell within the sphere of employment as it was a reasonable and necessary thing to do. For example, driving home to have some lunch, still within the course of employment because it's still connected to the work. Okay, you cannot work without having proper meal. Okay. Okay, we are done with the first scenario. Okay, the second scenario. What if there was a mistake committed by the employer in discharging the duty, in doing the work here? Okay, what's the rule? The rule is that this is considered as doing something authorized in an unauthorized way. So the mistake is unauthorized way. So was there liability? Yes, okay, in which the employer will also be found to be liable. So negligent carelessness of the employee, yes, liable. Mistake by employee, yes, liable. We have the case LQ and Samuels, okay, 1963, a lorry driver allowed a stranger to drive his lorry when accident occurred due to the negligence of the stranger. So basically, it happened during the course of the work. So Court of Appeal held that the employer was liable, okay, not for the negligence of the stranger, but for the negligence of the lorry driver for letting a stranger to drive the lorry. So what's the part of negligence here? Negligence on the part of the worker to allow a stranger to drive the lorry. So vicarious liability is established in that sense. Another case here, Bailey and Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway. And here it involves a porter. Okay, I'm not sure whether we still have porter here. Porter who the staff, okay, hired by the train authority, train railway authority, to assist or to monitor, to supervise, okay, what the situation in railway station. So the railway, Manchester, Sheffield, and Lincolnshire Railway here were held liable, okay, when their porter, okay, the porter is their employee, pull out a passenger from a train. Because why? The porter mistakenly, the mistake by the porter, by the employee, mistakenly thought that the passenger was on the wrong train. So he pulled the passenger because he thought the passenger was boarding the wrong train. Actually, the passenger was boarding the correct train. All right. So there was liability on vicarious liability on the part of the employee towards employer. Okay, the third situation, express prohibition by the employer. So if the worker, it depends on the situation here. Okay, the worker has acted, what happened is that if the worker has acted contrary to the express prohibition of his employer, so liable or not, the employer. So the court will examine what the worker has done. It could be yes, it could be no. It depends on the situation from case to case basis. All right, so we are able to divide into two. Okay, first, unauthorized act, and another one, unauthorized mode. First, if we look at the act itself, and then the way of doing the act, authorized mode. Okay, for unauthorized act, if the employee has done something that he was not employed or authorized to do at all, then it will be construed to mean that he was acting outside the scope of duty. It's not part of his job scope actually to do the work. So in that situation, employer will not be held liable, no vicarious liability. We have the case of Twine and Beans Express Limited. I'm going to discuss after this. And then another situation here is that we have, it's okay. The second one is unauthorized mode. Okay. While doing the job, he was asked or authorized to do, but he does something or expressly forbidden, unauthorized by the employee. So it falls within the scope of duty. Meaning that here, the act is authorized, but the way, okay, he does something expressly forbidden or unauthorized. Okay, so still considered as there was a vicarious liability. Employer will still be held liable. We have three cases to illustrate this this rule here. We have Limpus and General Omnibus. We have State Government of Perak and Muniandi, and also Rose and Plenty. We're going to discuss all the cases. Okay, this is to explain unauthorized act and the employer will not be held liable. Okay, here Twine and Beans Express Limited, 1946. So here, the employee was told by the employer not to give leave, okay? But in contrary, he did. He still did, okay? Whatever were being prohibited here. And the person, okay, was injured due to the employee's negligence. He's not supposed to give a right, okay, give leave to anyone, but he did so. So in that situation, employer was not held liable because why? Giving free leave here was not the job that the employer was employed to do. And therefore, employee was acting outside the scope of his employment because he did that for his friend. So this is all unauthorized act in the first place. So no vicarious liability on the part of the employer. So who's liable here? Personal liability on the part of the employee. Okay, Rose and Plenty to explain to us, to illustrate to us unauthorized mode, okay, in which employer will still be held liable. Okay, what happened here? a milkman, second employer, okay, warned him not to allow children to help him or to allow passengers on his vehicles. So there was express prohibition here. But the milkman, however, did engage a 13-year-old plaintiff, very young assistant here, okay, to help him, and the plaintiff suffered injury due to the negligence of the milkman while on the vehicle. So the assistant, which was prohibited, okay, by the employer, the act of employing assistant here, okay, right? But the court held that employer was liable because why? The milkman was acting in the course of employment because engagement of the boy was still made for the business. It's not for personal purpose here. Okay, he did it for the employer. So the act here, unauthorized mode of doing the work, but he's still doing the work. Okay, delivery of the milk basically. Okay, right. So still, the employer was held liable under vicarious liability. For Lippers and General Omnibus Company, the bus driver was expressly forbidden from racing and obstructing other buses from rival companies. So they're not supposed to race, okay? But the driver did so. During the racing, it caused a collision, okay, with another bus, plaintiff bus here. So employer were held liable because why? The driver was still doing an unauthorized act. But in an unauthorized manner. So driving a bus is still allowed. Okay, this is the job scope there. Okay, but racing, this is unauthorized manner. So this all fall under unauthorized mode. That's why employer will still be held liable under vicarious liability. Okay, this is quite a long one. Okay, so we stop here. Okay, we are going to continue this criminal acts in our part 3 of the lecture. Alright, that's all. Okay, I stop share first. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.